Switch the scene. And we're live.
Yay!
Yay! Here we go. Welcome back to Tips from Your Boyfriend, episode 3.
I'm Bethany.
I'm Chinggis. We're always going to have these awkward moments at the beginning where we try to recalibrate and figure out exactly what we're going to do again.
Yeah.
Because it's been a little over a week, right?
It's been 2 weeks since we've done this, I think.
Okay. I mean, the first couple episodes are just going to be for reference. I know we're live. People are watching. People probably aren't watching because we're not,
we haven't announced this yet. Yeah.
Nobody's going to be able to find us. We haven't done any sort of marketing or SEO, search engine optimization and all that. So
yeah,
that's what I mean.
We'll get there. For right now, we're just kind of practicing, I think, to get in our groove before we start exposing people to our live hot messness.
Yeah, and if there's any technical issues or anything like that, please forgive us.
Right.
We're figuring this out.
We'll get there.
But all right, episode 3. What do we got in our retinue?
So we have our tip of the day, and then I think we're going to talk a little bit about conflicts, but because we talked about conflict last time, but we were talking more about just communication in general and how you can improve it. And I think this time we're going to come at it from a different angle as far as perspectives when you're in the middle of conflict and how to get on the same page.
Mm-hmm. And that's Boulardii.
Yes.
That's Boulardii.
You can lead with that one.
Yeah, so we'll go tip of the day, and then we'll go into Boulardii, and then we'll explain what that is, and then we'll talk about the relationship thing.
Yep.
And I think we talked about this, and I just want to let everybody know also that we're going to try to do a structured segments where we first talk about tip of the day, and then we talk about a health issue, and then we talk about a relationship issue.
Right.
A topic that we want to talk about that we experienced the last couple of days, and we wanted to just share our experiences of what we were thinking, and maybe you guys can benefit from it too.
Yeah.
All right, so tip of the day. Take care of your gut.
Yes. And
I think this is something me and you learned early on.
Yeah.
When we first started dating, I think that we both really benefited from putting more attention into what we're eating, what we're ingesting, and kind of any sort of symbiotic relationship we might have with our gut bacteria and gut microbiome. And I think that at one point I was really trying to get across to you, and you were trying to get across to me how we could improve ourselves there.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's such a trending topic right now, the whole gut microbiome and everything is touted to be this is great for your gut health and get your gut in shape. And I think right now a lot of people are a little bit jaded by it because they don't quite understand, well, what does that even mean to have a healthy gut? But I think one of the more practical things that you and I did, and one of the easiest things that we did to clean up our gut, was start taking, it's called Boulardii. I think it stands for Saccharomyces. It's SACCH something. The way I remember it is Chef Boyardee, and so I think of Boulardii. I don't know, it's a dumb way of remembering it.
I think that if anybody wants to Google Boulardii, it'll come up the first thing.
Yeah, Boulardii.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's pronounced as Boulardii or something like that.
Yeah.
Because didn't you go to talk to a nurse or something about it? Or didn't you talk to somebody?
I think it was on a podcast where I heard it pronounced, and they're like, Boulardii. And I was like, oh, that's how you say it.
Which makes sense because there's 2 I's at the end of it.
Right.
So.
But if you remember it, Chef Boyardee, but Boulardii.
So we talked about gut health, and then we got onto Boulardii, and then we bought a bottle, and we started taking it.
Yeah. So I think the reason that we actually started to find it was because I had some weird stuff come up on my blood labs that indicated that it was either a parasite, which I don't think it is at this point, or it's an allergy. And I was like, I don't have allergies, so it's probably not an allergy. So we were looking on Reddit, of all places. Don't go to Reddit for all your health issues, but it was something that we were kind of seeing, okay, if it was a parasite, what would be a way of eradicating it? Yep. And Boulardii kept coming up across anything for gut health related. And so after that, also with my Hashimoto's, and then I also had SIBO as well, which is another gut condition. Boulardii was kept popping up for both those conditions, and it's thyroid and gut are so separated, but yet it was recommended for all of it. And so you and I started taking it, I think it was twice a day for 2 months.
I think we started once a day for a bit, and then we went to twice a day.
Okay.
But we did it for a week once a day, and then we did twice a day for 2 months, I think.
Yeah.
I think we went through 2 bottles for 2 months.
I think so.
Between the 2 of us.
Yeah. And I think you noticed it more so than I did. Just the
Yeah.
difference it made and how you felt and like the bloating that you had and
It definitely made my kind of gut microbiome, I don't know how to describe it, much more regular, much less bloating, much less gas, much just felt a lot better. And I felt like my intestines were just functioning much better and I was able to digest things and I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel like I was eating too much even though I was eating a lot and all that kind of thing. Where where I found S. Boulardii helped me the most was not to get too much into this, but with going to number 2 in the bathroom. I don't know how else to put it. I can go like the medical route and call it stool. You know what I mean?
that sounds so like my stools.
I know, exactly. Like my stools ended up much better. Can I just say like my poops are better? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's a good thing to talk about poops. Like you and I talk about our poops, which is kind of a weird thing, I think, for couples. But like, I don't know, it's important. It's like, again, it's like the quality of your gut indicates the quality of like your overall health because it's connected to literally everything.
Right.
I mean, that gut-brain connection is real. Like they connect like anxiety and depression to like your microbiome. Like for example, even recently, I was on antibiotics and I had so much brain fog after being on these antibiotics. It's like I would walk into a room and be like, why am I in here?
Yeah.
And I realized that once my gut was rebalanced after being on antibiotics, like I don't have that anymore.
Agreed. And so your gut like really affects kind of the entire functioning of your body in general. Like the easiest example of this is just being hangry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, what is it about just eating something, getting some sort of sustenance into your stomach that elevates your mood so that you're not hangry anymore?
Right.
It's like night and day with me, where it's like, if I'm hungry and something just rubs me the wrong way, I just become perpetually just not in a good mood and I'm angry in general and like I want to start biting people's heads off. But then I get something in my stomach, I immediately feel better. I'm immediately happier. I'm immediately more social and whatever is just makes me a much better person to be around. But what is it about just getting some food into your stomach that makes you feel better? And I think the biggest one is like there must be some sort of connections through your nervous system between your stomach and your brain that would affect your mood, because you wouldn't think that like having such a drastic change just because you ate something will be normal if there wasn't some sort of crazy connection between your brain and your gut, essentially.
Sure. Yeah, and what I was most impressed with too is like for you, it's like pulling teeth to get you to take any kind of supplements. And for this, like you want to tell the world about it. It's like anytime I like tell him about like, oh, I have a client who's going through this, he's like, did you tell him about S. Boulardii?
That's true.
Just because it's so helpful. I actually learned after the fact, once we started taking it, that they actually prescribe that in certain countries. I think Spain is one of them, where if you have food poisoning, they actually prescribe S. Boulardii to help clean up your gut.
Yeah.
And it's also it's technically a yeast. It's not a bacteria because most probiotics are made from bacteria. This one's a yeast.
It is a yeast. Yeah.
And because of that, if you're taking antibiotics, which wipe out all the good bacteria, it survives. And so it's a good way of kind of keeping your gut a little bit more balanced while you're doing something that's just like eradicating all the bacteria in your gut. So I did that during the most recent round of antibiotics. And like I said, I still have brain fog, but I didn't have as many bad side effects as I usually do when I'm taking antibiotics. And then to your point, like my poops were better. Like I wasn't like suffering the way I normally do.
Like where I was going with the whole like gut-brain connection, like obviously being hangry is not good and you eat something you feel better, but like anything you can do to improve your gut in general. And I think that taking S. Boulardii and essentially colonizing your gut with good yeast helps with your gut-brain connection also.
Yeah.
I think it'll just make you feel better in general. It'll make you think clearer and you'll have a better mood. It also obviously helps you with your bowel movements.
Yeah. One thing I actually learned this year, sorry, like I know we're talking about poop, but you're supposed to go poop every single day. And if you don't go once a day, you're technically constipated. And it's like, I didn't used to think about that. Like it just went when I went, like, and now I notice, like, did I go today? And if not, what did I eat or what do I need to eat to make that happen? Because it's such a huge part of detoxifying your body.
So again, we're going to be talking about poop a lot. I don't know why. Well, I know why. It's because that's Boulardii. So I
Yeah.
think that generally speaking, in my experience anyways, is that I want to be a normal, healthy adult. And so I think that I should be going to the bathroom very regularly, once a day, usually at the same time of day, and that the stool shouldn't I shouldn't be constipated and I shouldn't have diarrhea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it should be relatively regular. You shouldn't like be in pain on the toilet every day.
It shouldn't require effort.
Exactly. It should just be like clockwork. You know what I mean? Like clockwork. Every morning, depending on what, or morning, afternoon, whenever you go, it just comes in every single day. And for me, like, not to get TMI again, my experience is that every morning, 8 a.m., I just go to the bathroom. It is what it is, you know what I mean? I'll be sitting on the couch after I eat my breakfast, and I just need to go every single day.
Yeah. I think
And that's normal.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's not.
But yeah, I think in general too, and the other thing that we did aside from the S. Boulardii was just making sure that we're getting probiotics in our diet. So whether that's through yogurt, we were eating kimchi for a while there,
Yep.
kombucha, which make sure you get a brand that doesn't have a lot of sugar in it. Yeah.
Which there shouldn't be too much sugar in kombucha.
No, not too much.
It depends
There are
also.
some brands that have a lot, but for the most part, they're pretty low in sugar.
Kombucha is a fermented tea, fermented and sweetened tea. We're actually going to try to make our own soon, but it's basically just essentially good bacteria and yeasts that they colonize the drink that you're having, and so it's essentially like as Boulardii, but it's just different strains that you're drinking that will also help colonize your gut with good bacteria and good yeast.
Yeah. That's the other reason why sourdough is actually one of the better breads for you, because it's fermented. It's had that time for the bacteria to kind of digest.
Yeah. Agreed. And then generally speaking, we've been reading up a lot on it, but we can't really speak too much of it, and the history of like our relationship between good bacteria and like our, what do you call it? Symbiosis between good bacteria and human beings, and how you really do want good bacteria and yeast in your stomach because it'll just help you with digestion. It'll help you with your mood. It'll help you with your health. And overall, it's a field of study that needs to be kind of explored more. But I think that if you try to incorporate good habits in this area, it'll be beneficial for your long-term health.
Yeah. And then also paying attention to what feeds bad bacteria, right? So things that we know that feed bad bacteria are sugars, right?
High fructose corn syrup.
yeah.
Just avoid that shit.
Yeah. Alcohol is another one too. It just causes the bad bacteria to flourish.
Alcohol kills a lot of bacteria, yeah.
Yeah.
And so like if you drink a lot of alcohol, you could just be killing all the bacteria and stuff in your digestive system.
Yeah.
And so all the good stuff anyways. And whatever is alcohol resistant is probably not good. And so you'll probably have some gut issues if you drink a lot.
Sure. Yeah.
Because on the other hand, alcohol is fermented.
It's true.
And so like a little bit at a time is not going to do too much damage.
That's true. I'd argue that one, but.
In terms of your gut, it's not going to be too much
true.
damage. In terms of alcohol itself, it is, according to Huberman, a poison. And even small amounts is probably not great for your health.
Yeah.
Humans did evolve drinking it, and so it has its benefits and its cons.
Yeah.
But in small amounts.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I feel like the alcohol that we drink nowadays is different from the alcohol that like people drank in like years past, because there's more alcohol content compared to what there used to be.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what I read. I don't know if that's true or not, but it makes sense to me. It would be less
But long story
concentrated.
short, probiotics in general, if you ingest them from a good place, is going to be good for your health. As Boulardii is a really good one.
Yeah.
It's the one that helped us a lot. And then, of course, kombucha is helping us a lot. I want to try to make our own. Go from there.
Yeah. I take another probiotic. You don't take another one, but I take Beekeepers Naturals has one, and I've been liking that one because recently we went to New York City and we just had like Chipotle, we had protein bars. I don't know what else we ate, but both of us, we came back and our guts were like, oh.
There was something.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I mean, we could have had like a viral something maybe too, but that was another probiotic that I was taking, and I feel like that actually helped as well in addition to the S. Boulardii.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I don't take probiotics every day, but like during situations like that, I was like, let me double down on this.
So long story short, take some Boulardii. In our experience, it's helped a lot. Obviously, if you're young and your gut's like nice and strong, then don't worry too much about it, I think. But if you ever feel like your digestion is not up to par, definitely check it out.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's helped us a lot.
I always say you can get it from Whole Foods, you can get it from Amazon. I think the brand that we use is Haro or Jarrow, Jarrow.
Something like that, yep.
Yeah, that's the one that we've been using. And you don't have to refrigerate that one, which is nice too.
How else would you take care of your gut? Definitely remove high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, that one's a big one. Added sugars in general too, like sugar alcohols, things like that. Like I don't even like stevia, if I'm being honest, just because to me it's like a newer ingredient and I don't really know how it's processed. Whereas like sugar, like actual sugar or like coconut sugar, like I know what that is. Or like monk fruit sweetener is another good one that comes from a more natural source. Eating a balanced diet, like having your protein, having your veggies, having your fruits that have like polyphenols and antioxidants and things that just kind of keep your gut balanced, like things that come from the earth, things that come from nature that are not made from chemicals.
Yeah, so like I would say in my experience what helped was avoiding anything that has high fructose corn syrup in it. Any sort of juices or sodas or anything like that that have a lot of sugar, just avoid that. Added sugars in general, avoid as much as possible.
Yeah.
Other things to avoid is highly processed foods. Any sort of foods that you feel like can just sit on the shelf for weeks and weeks and weeks, probably avoid those as well. Obviously, you can't avoid everything,
Yeah.
but a lot of it avoid.
I would say for me personally too, like dairy, because I know that can actually mess with my gut if I have too much of it. If I have small amounts, I'm fine, because I'm not lactose by any means, but for whatever reason, like I do notice that does impact my gut bacteria, where it's like if I have too much sour cream, like for example, like when we went to New York and I had some like sour cream that was on my Chipotle, like I think that honestly, or no, it was cream cheese on my bagel, that's what it was. I think that actually made my gut kind of like, ugh. So noticing things like that.
I will say something about dairy is that if you don't have a dairy allergy or if you're not lactose intolerant and you've been eating dairy all your life and it's a high quality dairy, I think it's completely fine.
Sure.
Just completely fine. It's probably good for you, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just that finding high quality dairy products is going to be difficult. Because I think any sort of like cream cheese you might get off the shelf or any sort of cheeses that you might get at the grocery store might not be the best quality. They're going to be highly processed and they're going to have a lot of preservatives and things that you probably aren't going to be good for you.
Yeah, so seeing if you can get dairy products directly from a farm or a farmer's market, raw dairy, it's kind of trending right now for that reason, is because it's healthier for you.
Yeah.
Cultured butter, that's another one, like cultured dairy products, yogurts are great. But yeah, that's just something that I noticed for me personally. If I have dairy, then my gut usually gets a little bit out of whack.
Yeah. That, and if you're lactose intolerant like me or have a lactose allergy, because I think I have kind of both a little bit, don't get dairy.
It's not pleasant.
You can live without it.
Yeah.
You can live without cheese on a burger. It is what it is. Let's see, what else? I think that a lot of people eat cereals for breakfast, and I don't think cereals are healthy for you, in my experience, because I think they're loaded up on sugars, and you see all these commercials that say it's part of a balanced breakfast or it's something good for you, and I don't think that you can just take them at their word.
Yeah.
Whenever you see a commercial, you really have to understand that these are just marketing in order for them to make more money, essentially, not so much to actually push something healthy on you.
It's empty calories. There's no nutrition in it. There's barely any, even though they're like, oh, it's a high fiber cereal, there's barely any fiber in it. It's all carbs. So it's like you're going to be hungry in a few hours because you're basically eating something that turns to sugar in your body and isn't going to fuel you properly. It's not going to have the fiber that you need to keep you full. No, I'd 100% agree with that. Granola too. I actually, a lot of people think that granola is really healthy, and it's not. I mean, it can be if you have something that's loaded with nuts or other things like that. But outside of that, most granola is just oats or cereals, essentially. That aren't really that good for you.
Honestly, like, all these things depend also, right? Like granola is at the store, you'll find different qualities, and a lot of them probably aren't that good for you because of all the added sugars.
Yeah.
But you've made granola at home a couple of times,
Yeah.
and I didn't see any issues with that.
No, and it was because it was mostly nut based. So it had almonds, it had walnuts, it had not pistachio. What's the other P one? Pecans.
Yep.
And it had coconut oil and some other things. It was a Be Well by Kelly recipe. Kelly LeBeck is a nutritionist who I follow. I absolutely love her. But it was the recipe out of her cookbook.
And we use coconut oil?
It's coconut oil. I think it has a little bit of cinnamon. And then it has a few other, like, what do you call it? Spices in it to make it taste really yummy. And it's like crack. Like, whenever I make it, it's gone in like 2 seconds.
Well, it's because I eat it with everything.
Yeah.
It's so easy to snack on, too.
It's good, and it's filling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not empty calories, and it's something that will actually get you somewhere.
I was going to say, you make it with coconut oil, right? But like if you go to the store, they probably usually don't use coconut oil. They use something else.
Yeah, they probably use like sunflower oil or some other inflammatory.
Seed oils.
Yeah.
That's another controversial topic.
Yeah.
We typically avoid seed oils, honestly. In our experience, I think they don't really mesh with my gut because I always feel a little more bloated and worse when I do eat seed oils.
Yeah.
But it's controversial because I don't know if like there's research or some authority figures out there are saying it's good for you or bad for you. I know the FDA obviously approved, and the FDA really just it has very high standards for whether something is like going to damage you or hurt you, right?
I'd argue that one.
Well, it has pretty high standards in terms of whether something can very visibly or very obviously bad for you.
Yes and no.
Generally speaking,
sure.
Right.
But we do know that seed oils are an omega-9. They're very inflammatory. And I think that it's not even the seed oils in itself. So like sunflower oil by itself, for example, like sunflower oil is probably fine. But the fact that it's the way that it's processed that causes it to be something that's so inflammatory, and just the quantities of it too, because it's in literally everything that we eat.
Yeah, so we've been avoiding seed oils. And I think that I almost exclusively use olive oil.
For the most part,
I think so. Almost exclusively use olive oil. I know we used to use avocado oil-based dressings for salads. I think we've kind of moved away from that.
It just doesn't taste as good.
Doesn't taste as good. But I think that's pretty much it. And the reason why we stick with those is because it's very, very simple to make olive oil and avocado oil. You literally just take the olives, avocados, squeeze them, oil comes out, and that's what we use.
Yeah.
There's no processing really and everything like that. And it's all very kind of very natural, essentially.
Coconut oil is another good one too.
Yeah.
That's another one. It's like you literally just press the coconuts. There you go. There's no processing involved with it.
Actually, I'd be very curious if we could make our own olive oil.
Like, that would be so involved.
I know. There's like no way. There's no way, but I'm very curious if we could do it.
Yeah.
We probably could.
We
honestly.
could. It just would be a lot.
It'd be a lot.
Yeah.
And we'd have to like, I don't know, clean it because like I don't want like all that extra like olives.
I wonder
don't know
how many olives it would take
clarify.
to make like even a tablespoon of olive oil. Like I wonder what that, because it's so compressed, I wonder how many olives you'd have to buy just to get like a little bit of olive oil.
We'd have to get like a compressor.
Yeah.
Like get like a little contraption.
Get like bushels of olives.
Put some olives in there, like put the lever down, it squeezes it, and olive oil comes out. And then we need to filter it for all the little pieces and stuff like that, and then we could use it. But then it's not going to be like good olive oil per se. It's going to be like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I hate the taste of olives, actually. It's like one of the few foods where it's like I just will not eat. It's a texture thing, it's a flavor thing, but I love olive oil.
All right, what else should we either avoid or put into our diet?
I had one and it slipped my mind. What was it? Shoot.
Fruits, vegetables.
Fruits and vegetables.
Salts.
Fermented.
Yep. Meats.
Proteins, yeah. That one's a good one. Dang it, where was I going to go with that one?
I don't know.
Yeah, it'll come to me later.
Is it something that you wanted to remove or something that you'll add into your diet?
I think it was something to add in.
Add into your diet.
But I don't remember what it
was. Electrolytes. Those have helped us a lot.
That one's a good one, actually.
Yeah. getting a lot more salts into our system has helped us immensely, helped me immensely.
So going back to the salts, that was a side effect, or not side effect, I shouldn't say, but it was a positive effect that I didn't expect from doing. We drink Element, which is literally just salt that we put in our water.
The brand of electrolytes we get is called Element.
Yeah, it starts with so it's not like the word element, it starts LMNT.
Yep.
And we put maybe a half a packet in our water each time that we drink it, so we dilute it a little bit.
We do put like a half a packet into something like this, and I think this is 20 ounces. I think so.
That actually helped me with staying regular. It helps speed up my digestive system, which I was not expecting. I didn't really know that salt could do that, but it made a huge difference. Because before I would drink electrolytes if I knew I was going to be sweating a lot. So if I took a hot yoga class or if I did a workout class, but I wasn't drinking electrolytes just on the regular. And it was something that I was reading in regards to my thyroid, saying that, you know, you need to have electrolytes to be able to absorb the water that you drink. And so especially for people who have thyroid issues, you need a little bit more than usual. So that's when I started drinking it. But I noticed issues with, or like positive effects with my digestion, which I was very pleased with.
Yeah. Like the more I think about like salt and sugars and fats and all that, the more I realize that however many decades of just messaging in which we're messaged over and over again that fats are bad for you. We're messaged over and over again that salt is bad for you. It'll cause like heart disease and all that kinds of stuff. Increase your blood pressure. We're messaged over and over again that all these things that we should be eating are good for us were actually, like, per the experts, bad for us. And so there was decades of us where we just wouldn't eat fats and we'd eat sugars or carbs because we thought it was good. But then, like, in reality, what ended up happening was that you should honestly be pushing more towards fats than carbs in terms of your diet. You know what I mean? Like, human beings grew, like, evolved, I think, in generally, my thoughts anyways, eating more fats and proteins than carbs themselves because carbs were scarce.
Yeah.
But now it's just like we have such carb-rich diets. And I think it's really, really like probably the cause and the fuel for the obesity epidemic in the US.
100%. Just all the addictiveness and the things that it does to our brain and all of that. I mean, everything in moderation, right? I think that's what it always boils down to because your brain needs carbs.
Yeah.
If you don't have carbs, your brain cannot think. So it's like people on the keto diet, it's like the brain fatigue that they get is so real. Your brain needs carbs. But it's a matter of getting the right ones. So getting fruits, getting, you know, veggies, things that are natural as opposed to something that was like produced in a factory.
You might get some pushback from people in the keto community.
That's okay. I'm good with
that. That's because according to the research for keto, once you reduce your carb intake to very, very small amounts, like less than 20 grams a day or something like that, you end up making ketones, which take over for carbs in your brain. And so some people, especially what you read online, people will rave about how much mental clarity they have, how much energy they have, how much they feel so much better, how they're sharper because of the ketones in their system instead of the carbs in their system now.
Right.
Mileage may vary. Generally speaking, you'll hear very passionate voices online about reading things. And you generally won't hear from the voices where it didn't work for them or they didn't really care for it or like they had mediocre results or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Also, too, just to note, like keto is not meant to be a long-term diet.
Yeah.
Like you can't survive without carbs, like long-term. Short-term, sure, if there's something that you're trying to accomplish specifically with that. But I think long-term, that's not a lifestyle choice that's probably the best to maintain.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think keto is one of those things that it's actually a decent to do a diet of, where you do it for a short period of time to get the results that you might want from it, and then cut back onto something a little bit more balanced.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how you're going to live your life eating less than 20 grams of carbs a day.
Yeah.
That's insane to me.
Yeah. Not good.
That's not good. Like, how many carbs are in an apple? Like 20, I think, or something like that.
That's what came to mind, actually. It's probably somewhere around there.
So if you eat an apple in one day, you're already hitting your limit for carbs for keto. That's insane. Actually, I don't know how many carbs are in an apple. Let me look this up. Give me a second. I'll look this up.
Yeah, not for carbs, but I know that the American Heart Association, I think it is, don't quote me on this, but it's one of the, I don't think it's the American Dietetics, but I think it's American Heart Association, says max of 25 grams of sugar per day. like total in your entire day. And I feel like there are so many drinks where it's like you get that in just like the drink that you have.
Okay, according to Carb Manager, the #1 low carb and keto diet app since 2010. Whatever. Source is questionable. But it says that the net carbs in one apple is 19.3 grams.
Oh, we were close.
Yeah, we were pretty close.
Right on the money.
Yeah, that's insane. Is there like a better source?
I feel like that's ballpark enough, though.
I would say it's ballpark. They're not going to be like off completely. The other, I don't know about these sources. Eating Well, Ketogasm, Healthline, FatSecret.com,
Ketogasm?
Carb Manager, Very Well Fit. That's going to be difficult. Harvard, EDU, nutrition sources, apples.
Oh, I know what I was going to say about Get Health.
What?
Having time where you're not snacking and you're not eating. I think having 12 hours between dinner and breakfast is another really good way to keep your gut, because if you're digesting constantly, your body doesn't have a chance to kind of regroup and clean out. So I think that's a really important thing, is to actually have time where your body's not digesting. So it doesn't have to be something as drastic as intermittent fasting, but having time where you're not eating, where you're not snacking, and you can go, 3 to 4 hours without eating throughout your day, I think is really healthy, and it's good for your gut as far as your microbiome as well.
And yeah, that does play into gut health also, because it's like depending on what sort of yeast or bacteria, like what sort of probiotics you have in your gut, that'll also kind of help you figure out and control cravings, essentially, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like you should be able to go a couple hours without getting crazy cravings for food.
Yeah.
You should be able to do that. And I think that's going to be dependent a lot on the microbiome in your gut.
Yeah, 100%. And then also too, just like cleaning out your gut in general too, being able to be fully empty for a little bit and sit with that, I think is really important as well.
Yeah. Cleanses. There you go, babe. Are you advocating for cleanses?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, no. Fasting, I think, is interesting, though. You and I did that for a little bit, where we would fast, what was it, once a week? That was too much. And honestly, I think you probably could have kept up with that. But for me, my body was just like, no, we're not doing this. Because we would do a full 24-hour, like nothing but liquids fast. And I was crashing during that. That didn't work for me. But for you, I think you felt kind of good, but you would get so angry. I was just like, I can't handle you.
Halfway through the day, I'll just like start to spend so much mental energy just to keep a good mood.
Yeah.
And so I'd have to kind of sit there, have this hungry feeling in my stomach, getting the benefits of a fast.
But just being on edge.
But then
constantly.
just being on edge for the entire half the day. Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't pleasant.
So I don't know about that.
But
again, I'm not knocking fasting. I'm not knocking a lot of these things.
No.
I'm not talking about like not saying they're bad for you or good for you or anything like that. I'm talking about our experiences doing these kinds of things. And honestly, a lot of your experiences will vary, and it also will really depend on what your goals are in terms of diet, in terms of fitness and that kind of stuff. Like if you're trying to gain muscle, you should not fast. Absolutely not. There's no reason to.
Right.
Fasting is going to be completely counterproductive to gaining muscle.
Yeah.
Versus like if you're trying to lose weight in general, then maybe, fasting probably could help you in the long term and you could benefit from it.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Every body is so unique. So like listening to your gut, I think, is another one too, of paying attention to like, how do you feel after you eat foods?
Yeah.
Like if you eat something and you feel really lethargic wow, I can talk. If you feel really lethargic afterwards, or if you feel like you have a runny nose or things like that, just paying attention to how you feel. I think that one's a big one too. But yeah, everybody's unique. Everyone's individual. Also depends on your goals. Someone who's trying to get pregnant, maybe you shouldn't be trying to lose weight at the same time. It's so unique.
We're going to be accused of equivocating and being vague about everything now.
That's fine.
It really depends on the individual situation. A lot of the general advice is actually pretty good though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when somebody goes to the gym and someone gives them general advice of like, okay, well, continuously try to increase weight, focus on good form, and be very regular about going to the gym. That's just good advice that everybody can benefit from.
That's the thing, is I feel like people get really frustrated with just the conflicting information that comes out there, like whether it's dieting, whether it's working out or things like that. But if you stick to the basics, like just like the common sense basics of like staying consistent with eating healthy, staying consistent with moving, however that may be, that's where you win.
So what are some basics for like fixing your diet?
I would say getting as many veggies as possible is a basic for one. And then having
increasing veggies.
Yeah, having a protein at every meal.
Yep, could see that. I would say one of the big basics is no more high fructose corn syrup or added sugars.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people out there who don't even know how much sugar they're consuming because they don't look at the label.
Yeah.
And if you're able to look at the label or look at whatever you're eating and just remove all that high fructose corn syrup and added sugars, like your diet will greatly benefit from that.
Yeah. That was something I didn't learn until later in life. I don't think I ever looked at a label until I found out I had celiac disease. And when I had to start learning how to read labels to see if it had gluten in it, that's when I actually started paying attention to like, oh, well, what else is in the food that I'm eating? Yep. So when I'm looking at a label specifically, first I'm looking for gluten. But for most people, I would say look at the sugar content. That's always where my eyes go to whenever I pick up a new product is how many grams of sugar does it have? Because as I was saying, when you're looking up for the apple, they say per day total and your entire day, 25 grams of sugar. So if you're drinking a beverage that has like 20 grams of sugar, like that's 20 grams out of 25 that you want to have per day. That's a lot.
Wait, what's the recommendation? 25 grams a day?
25 grams of sugar per day. That's not a lot.
Added sugar or carbs?
No, different from carbs, so just pure sugar.
Got it.
Yeah, carbs is a totally different story, but sugar itself, you want to have less than 25 grams a day.
Okay.
So that's something that I always look at is how many grams of sugar, and then the second thing that I look for is the first ingredient or like the first 3 ingredients of a product, because when labels are on a food, each one is listed based on the content. So the first ingredient is whatever is the most in that food.
Yeah.
So I like to see, okay, well, what are the main ingredients in this? And if it's something creepy, then I'm not going to eat it.
Agreed. I mean, we're talking about low-hanging fruit at this point. I feel like we've gone so far past Boulardii that it's like, what do we even talk about anymore?
Yeah,
but all right, I would say let's move on to the next one. But it's closing thoughts in terms of like good food. Good things to fix your diet. No added sugars, no high fructose corn syrup, more veggies, more proteins, alcohol, reduce it by 90% consumption.
Yeah, and then just allow some breathing room. Like have some breaks between dinner and breakfast. Have 12 hours where you're not eating anything, where you're not snacking. Try not to snack between meals unless you're really hungry. Giving your body a little bit of a break from eating.
And all these things is some things that we've done. You know what I mean? This has all helped us in our lives.
Yeah.
In order to feel better, in order to look better, in order to just live better.
That was our thing. Fit and sexy kind of became our mantra. It's such a silly thing. But when we first started dating and like, I don't know, if we were reaching for some unhealthy thing or whatever, we would say like, oh, fit and sexy. And it really has become a mantra that we kind of abide by, though, like kind of basing our decisions off of that, of what's going to make us fitter, what's going to make us sexy. I know that sounds so like ridiculous, but it actually helps as like a guidepost for us almost in our decisions that we make to move us towards that.
And it does like make it more motivational in order to focus on our health.
Yeah.
And I think most people should be thankful that they're healthy if like when they are healthy.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us like, we don't focus on it as much, and I think there should be more focus on just being a healthy, able person.
100%. Because the thing that I see in my job, because I'm a fascial stretch therapist, and I work with a lot of people who are recovering from an injury or they're in pain, chronic pain of some kind. And one thing I see over and over again is people don't appreciate their health until they lose it.
Yeah.
It's the most easy thing to take for granted until you don't have it anymore. And when you don't have it anymore, then it's just your entire life revolves around getting your health back. And so I think it's honestly the most valuable thing you have is your health. And that includes everything, right? Like your mental health, your physical health and spiritual health and whatnot. But yeah.
They say like you don't know what you have until it's gone.
Yeah.
And then like that's also applies to health.
100%.
You take it for granted until you start losing it, and then you start like focusing more on it.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of younger people will benefit immediately and hugely benefit in the long term if they started focusing on their health when they're younger. Don't obsess over it, but stay healthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I always focus on the Pareto principle. 80% of your benefits are going to come from 20% of your efforts. And so to try to focus as much as you can on that 20% of your efforts to make sure you get 80% of the benefit. If you want to do more than that, you can do more than that. But try to do at least that, which should be the bare minimum.
Yeah. Doing what you can, not obsessing over the little things, like you said. And then also just making it into a lifestyle. It's like, what can I actually change about my lifestyle, about my habits, about my routine that I consistently do day in, day out to move me towards healthy, instead of just having it be like, I'm going to shake up everything all at once and do some crash crazy something to like be super healthy. That never works.
Yeah.
Yeah. On to the next.
On to the next. So, moral of the story, be healthy. And if you want to take some Boulardii, we took it, we loved it, we still take it. So
Yeah.
try it out.
Yeah, especially if you're taking antibiotics. Highly, highly, highly recommend doing that.
All right. So on to the relationship topic.
Yeah.
What was it? We're getting on the same page, I think was the relationship topic, right? What does that mean to you?
So I think the reason we wanted to talk about this is we were talking about conflict before, and just communication styles and whatnot. And so we were kind of thinking back to a time where we were in conflict and how we were able to resolve that. And it was by kind of understanding each other's perspective and getting on the same page. And also just, yeah, I'll let you take over with that one.
Right. So the reason why I wanted to bring this one up is because this takes me back to when me and you first moved in together, and we were trying to arrange the furniture in our living room. And we had very different perspectives on how we wanted to arrange it. And so we needed to find this common ground where I'm here, she's here, and we need to find a compromise in the middle. And for me, when I thought about the situation where we needed to meet in the middle between our two sides, like this conflict was 3 out of 10 on the Richter scale, where it was something that I understand we need to figure out a compromise. Obviously, I'm not going to get everything that I want. That's okay. We'll get through it. It'll be once we figure it out, we'll both settle into it, we'll both be happy about it, and we'll move on. Like, it didn't really strike me as like that significant of a conflict. You know what I mean? Like, things that strike me as a very significant conflict is like somebody like was committed some infidelity, or like did something else, or like broke some boundaries or anything like that. Like, that seems much more serious to me, versus like arranging furniture for me was minor. But for you,
For me, it was like an 8 out of 10 on the Richter scale. Like, I was afraid that if we do not figure this out, we are breaking up. Like, that's the level that we were at. And I mean, to be fair, I was under a lot more pressure than you were at the same time. And we had just come off of another conflict too. Because like, we were early on in our relationship when we moved in together. We had only been dating maybe 9 months.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of new things for me. It was like a whole new experience for me as well, like being in a serious relationship and whatnot. And I'm very conflict averse in general. Like, I just shut down and I try to avoid conflict as much as possible, which I'm learning how to like lean into conflict and how to deal with that. But especially at the time, I was like, if we don't figure this out, we're straight up breaking up. Like, this just is going to be the end of us. And yeah, we didn't understand at the time. And I thought too that it was as intense for you as it was for me.
Yeah, I didn't get that it was intense for her. I didn't pick up on that for the longest time. And so we just weren't, okay, we understood at the surface level, we needed to compromise. Mm-hmm. We needed to find a middle space. But we didn't understand that at the sub-level underneath the surface is that she wasn't understanding how much of a non-issue it was for me, and I wasn't understanding how much of a big issue it was for her.
Yeah.
And so we weren't on the same page at all about that.
Right.
And so like once we figured it out, and once we got to a place where we were happy with the way we freaking arranged the furniture, then for me, I thought we were just completely fine. We just got over this little thing that we do. And for you, I think you were just like a huge load off your shoulders. And
Yeah, it was a huge relief because it was like, okay, like we might be okay. We got through it, and like it seems like he still loves me. And I was kind of PTSD from it for a while, actually. And I felt like I was walking on tiptoes for a while afterwards because I was afraid of stirring up more conflict, because to me, it felt like that was a huge thing, and I was really shook up by it.
yeah, and then I only realized later, like I don't know how many weeks afterwards, where like you were able to not adequately, but like you were able to accurately portray to me how you felt about the situation, and I was able to finally understand that you were at an 8 out of 10 there when I was only a 3 out of 10. And so I understood the gap in our situations there. That I was finally able to like communicate and get on the same page about it. At that point, I realized, okay, well, I need to make sure that that doesn't happen again to the future, where I'm not at a 3 to 10 and you're not at 8 to 10, or the opposite where you're at 3 to 10 and I'm at 8 to 10. We need to be not only on the same page about the compromise of whatever we want to get to, we also need to be on the same page of how significant we think this issue is in the first place. That way we can more respect the perspective of the other person and not completely write off the other person's perspective or the other person's emotion or passion about a situation, or also maybe relax a little bit about something because maybe it isn't as important as we think it is.
I agree with that completely, because I feel like moving forward after that, whenever we did have a disagreement, which doesn't happen often, but you were able to kind of gauge more where I was at and how important something was to me, and like how much attention you needed to divide to like resolving it. And I think for me, when we were in a disagreement, you would kind of reassure me of like, hey, grand scheme of things, this isn't that big of a deal. We'll figure it out. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So I wasn't as rattled in the future when we
Yeah.
did have conflict that
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, this is going to make or break us,
Yeah.
because you would reassure me like, hey, like this is a 2 out of 10. We're going to be okay. We're going to work through this. So I think having that clarity of where we were at as far as like scale was really important.
It also takes a lot of the emotion out of it too.
Yeah.
Like if me and you are coming together and we're trying to arrange furniture or any sort of situation, we should probably think of another example too. If I come up to you and just tell you, hey, this is how I feel about it, this is how much of a big issue it is for me or a small issue for me, it does get you kind of more on the same page as me in the situation and calms you down. Or if it's the opposite, where I think something is not important and you come to me and tell me that, no, this is actually very important, it signals to me that I should be putting in more effort, more attention, and paying it, like putting in, raising my level of awareness on this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So instead of me bringing you down from an 8 out of 10 lower, you'll actually bring me up from a 3 out of 10 to higher. That way I am able to apply the right amount of seriousness to a situation.
And I think it avoids situations where you might have come across to me as dismissive, where it's like if something doesn't seem like a big deal to you, but you know it's a big deal for me, like you rise to the occasion and realize, okay, like, hey, I need to divide some energy to this. Whereas before, I think because you didn't realize it was that important to me, you were dismissive of it. And I was like, he's being dismissive of me. And that I took that personally.
Yeah.
And so I think we avoid a lot of that.
Yeah.
Having that clarifications, which I'm really grateful that we had that up front and so early on in our relationship, because I think that's really set a good foundation for us, like now gauging where each other's at.
You know, it's a funny one, a funny conflict we had. Skiing lessons for kids.
This was a low moment for me, I'll admit, very low. Can I jump in on this one? Okay, so I am a West Coaster. On the West Coast, we snowboard. We do not ski. Skiing is for snobby East Coasters. And I've had to really come to grips with, I live on the East Coast now. I'm going to have East Coast children. And we were talking about our theoretical kids that we don't have yet.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, we're going to be a snowboarding family. I'm going to put them into snowboarding lessons as soon as possible. And they're going to be great. We're going to be a snowboarding family. And he jumps in with like, yeah, but they're going to have to learn how to ski too. And I'm just like, no, they're not. And he's like, well, yeah, like they're gonna have to learn how to ski. Like they need to learn how to do both. And I'm like, why? Because we're gonna be a snowboarding family. There's no reason for them to learn how to ski. And like, oh man, it escalated.
This was such like a weird topic of discussion.
It was.
That for you, that for you was like an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
And it wasn't one of those situations where, for me, it was a 3 out of 10 and I brought her down. This was one of those situations where I was a 3 out of 10 on this one and she brought me up.
Yeah.
And I didn't like, I went there because I wanted to respect her seriousness about the situation. But thinking back on it a little bit now, it's a little ridiculous. And so the compromise we came up with was that they're going to learn to snowboard first.
Yes.
And then they will learn how to ski afterwards.
Yes.
And so we will still be a snowboarding family first, where we all snowboard and they'll learn how to do that first. And then they'll learn how to ski afterwards.
Right.
Yeah. And then my entire point between snowboarding and skiing is that, like, if they know how to do both, they can choose which one they want to do, which one they enjoy more, and they can focus on which one they want to do.
Yeah.
Versus, I think that you just didn't want them to learn how to ski.
My own little West Coast prejudice. But also, too, I to be fair, I think some of that, or a lot of that for me, isn't even about the skiing. It's like you can learn how to ski, but I think it was just for me just coming to terms with the fact that I'm having I live in the East Coast. My kids are going to have a totally different experience from what I had as a West Coaster, and just kind of being okay with that, which is tough, but it's a good thing though. It's a good thing. At the end of the day, our kids win. But
yes, they do. Because I want them to be able to choose.
yes.
I don't want them stuck in one if they're like whatever one we teach them.
Yeah.
They should have options.
That's true. And trust that they'll choose the right thing and learn to snowboard. Just kidding.
Stick with snowboarding, you mean. They
that's what I
stick with
mean.
snowboarding.
Yeah. No, they'll learn how to do both, like you said, and it'll be good.
Our future children, our potential, I don't know, our hypothetical future children.
Yes. Which is what made the fight even weirder. It's like
Yeah.
we didn't even have kids. We weren't even near having kids or thinking about having them yet at the time. And we're just like, rah.
So weird to me. I had to start taking this conversation seriously, even though I wasn't that serious about it.
Yeah, I remember you just looking at me. You're like, this is not a good look on you. And I'm like, I know.
I don't know. What else was something about it?
I'm trying to think of like what other conflicts we've had that we've had to compromise, or where we had to discuss where you were at versus where I was at.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But I think, yeah, just in general, that's something that's really helped us out as far as getting on the same page, for sure.
I think it's very important.
That, and then I think one thing I really appreciate about you too is that you want to resolve things as much as I do, and you're willing to work towards that. And I think that whenever I've brought something up of like, hey, this is bothering me, or hey, this is how I feel about this, or how this is how X makes me feel, you always thoughtfully consider it. Like, you've never been dismissive of something and just be like, okay, whatever. You've always took time to actually think about what I said and consider it and think about the different angles, and then come to me after you've thought about it, which is something I've always appreciated, because you've done that since the beginning.
Yeah. I think it's important to respect the starting point of where people are at in a situation or a conflict or a conversation or anything like that. Like, how do I put this? Respecting a starting point means that even though you might go into a situation that you think is just a non-issue, if the other person's at an 8 out of 10, you don't dismiss them. You respect their starting point, you acknowledge where they are, like an 8 out of 10, and then you talk to them about it. Try to understand why they're at an 8 out of 10, what about the situation is causing them to feel that way, and then figure out, not maybe bring them down from an 8 out of 10 or bring them up from a 2 out of 10, but really just validate their feelings first and then move on to why you believe. Like, they might bring up some issues that you think are non-issues. And so she might think like it's one of those first things, like one of our first tests of a relationship that we might fail if we move in together and we can't figure out what our furniture is supposed to look like in our living room, right? And to me, I had to acknowledge where she was from, and then also explain to her my situation of like, this is not going to make or break our relationship, because from my perspective, we could just live without furniture completely and I'd be completely fine. But, and I still want to be with you and all that kinds of stuff. I was trying to think of a good example of this. There was a movie, and I'm not sure I'm going to explain this well. There's a movie called Don't Look Up, where there's an asteroid heading towards the Earth, and people were just not concerned about it. Like, it was a given fact that an asteroid was going to hit the Earth and it was going to wipe out humanity. And people were just not acknowledging it. They were living life like they're normal, and like the main characters of this movie were freaking out and couldn't understand why nobody else was freaking out about that. I think what they didn't do a good job of doing is that they didn't acknowledge the starting point for most people. For most people, for some reason, they either didn't believe that an asteroid was heading towards the Earth, or it just didn't register with them. And so instead of respecting their starting point and moving them up from there, they were just trying to scream at them to like stop dismissing it, try to get to the exact same 8 out of 10 that they are on, and failing completely in communicating and convincing them of the seriousness of the situation. So if you respect their starting point of a 2 out of 10, and then you discuss the issue with them, you can bring them to a 3 out of 10. And then from 3, you can bring them to 4. From 4, you can bring them to 5, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, yada, yada. But you can't bring them from 2 to 8 immediately. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I agree. And then also, too, it's just like if something's important to you, like express it. I feel like kind of going back to the conflict resolution that we were talking about in our last episode, it's so important to actually express what you feel and maybe state what you think is obvious, because the other person can't read your mind.
Yeah.
And so you need to fill in the blanks for them.
Yep. And it'll help the other person understand everything that you're saying. Also brings them up from like a 2 to a 3 or 3 to a 4.
Yeah.
Man, that scale system is not great, but it's the only thing I got.
Yeah, it works though. Honestly, it's a good way of explaining, I think specifically what we went through and what a lot of couples probably go through, or any relationships in general too, whenever there's conflict.
Yeah, and the last thing also I'll say about the scale system is like, it's good to go 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, but it's probably not good to jump from a 3 to a 6, because that's just a shock to the system.
Yeah.
I don't know what else I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So getting on the same page, very important.
Yeah, you're on the same team. It's not you versus them. It shouldn't be a battle against each other. It's like you're working together as a team to figure out a resolution to something. And
yeah.
Yeah.
And just because also, last point I'll make about this is that just because you understand where someone's coming from does not mean you hold the same opinion. Mm-hmm. Someone might express an opinion, and you'll go and you'll say, I understand your opinion of what you're doing or what you're saying or what you're thinking. Doesn't mean that I agree with it. I can understand that person's idea, hold that idea in my head, doesn't mean I agree with it.
Right.
And so like, that's good, because I should be able to understand where you're coming from and your opinions and ideas, and you should be able to understand where I'm coming from, my ideas and opinions, and we should be able to move on from there. Once we understand each other, move on from there and find somewhere like a middle ground that we can get to.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also too, I think that gives you a better place of like knowing where to compromise and when it's like violating your boundaries to do so and when it's not. Like, so for example, like going back to something where it's like, if something's a 1 out of 10 for you, but it's like a 9 out of 10 for me, like for you to compromise isn't as big of a deal compared to like, if it's a 10 out of 10 for you and it's a 10 out of 10 for me, like we need to find something for sure that's like a compromise or as close to a compromise as we can get.
Yeah.
Yeah. So knowing to pick your battles, I guess, is a better way of saying that. But. Yes.
You know, I just had a thought also. Sometimes, if I'm at a 9 out of 10 and you're at a 1 out of 10, and let's say every single conflict we have, I'm always the 1 out of 9 and you're always the 1 out of 1. It does not mean that I'm always going to get my way about things because I feel strongly about the situation.
Yeah.
Just because you're at a 1 and you're not stressed about the situation does not mean that you should always be giving in to what I want, just because I feel like I'm more invested into it.
Yeah, I agree.
So somebody who's more flexible about things, somebody who cares a little bit less about the final outcome, does not mean that they should always be the one losing on the compromises.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be the one that like gives space or what do you call it? Appeases the other person every single time.
Right.
Because that's not healthy either.
Yeah, you're a team,
Yeah.
and one person shouldn't be carrying the team by constantly having to sacrifice.
Yep. What else? Getting on the same page. Has there been another conflict that me and you have been in? I'm trying to think.
I know, I'm trying.
I can't think of one on the top of my head right now.
I know. Yeah, because the only thing that I'm kind of thinking of is like the personal space thing, which it never broke into like a full-on conflict. But for example, I'm somebody who I love attention all day, every day from him. I just like the company. I'm not a fan of being alone all the time. However, you need alone time to recharge. Like that's the way that you kind of regroup. It's the way that you recharge. And when we first moved in together, I would take your need for alone time and the way that you would express it as like, you don't love me anymore. And so I'd be like, oh my gosh, he doesn't love me. And so I'd try even harder to get attention from you, and you would just kind of shut down, and it just created like conflict. And so I think just kind of going back to those days of like, I needed to understand from you why you needed alone time and that that's something that's valuable to you and important to you.
Yeah.
But you had to express that. And I had to wait for you to express that, because otherwise that's never something that was going to occur to me on my own unless you expressed it.
And so the compromise here is that you're going to work more on understanding that I need alone time to recharge, and I'm going to work more on expressing to you that my alone time is now no bearing on the way I feel for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why it's like, whenever I ask for alone time, I always come up to you and tell you I love you and everything is great, perfect. I just need alone time.
Yeah, you do it with reassurance. So it's like I feel secure, and it's like, okay, like his need for alone time has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Which makes it a lot easier on my end when I'm just like, ah. But yeah, that was a big one though, honestly. I feel like that was like one of the biggest learning curves when we moved in together, was just like learning how to navigate each other's need as far as like energy and how we gain energy.
Yeah. And so it's like, what am I, an introvert?
Yeah.
Is that what it means?
Yeah. I'm an ambivert in a lot of ways, because it's like, I do enjoy time with other people, but I need alone time to recharge. But I also like alone time with having someone personally present, even if we're not engaged with each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was, probably another conflict that never boiled into an actual conflict, but it was something underlying that we had to address in order to move forward.
And I think that was the one where I felt more strongly about the alone time than you did.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. I think we've been going for a little over an hour.
Wow.
Any last thoughts on getting on the same page?
No, I think just it always boils down to like you're a team, and so work as a team together. And end goal is to work together.
Yeah. And I think like getting on the same page, it'll overlap with what I feel like is called emotional labor or something. And it's similar, I agree. And shouldn't be the only one doing it also. Like me, both of us are both doing it at the same time. So we're on the same page on that as well.
Yeah.
And so it shouldn't just be one person doing it, because then it'll just be one-sided.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add to that one. And I think that's what we want to cover today, right?
Yeah, it was a good one.
So we're going to do a show tomorrow?
Yes. Taking advantage of the fact that it's a 3-day weekend and make up for some lost time on tips from your boyfriend and creating more content.
Well, it's been hard also recently because I've had a lingering cough.
Yeah.
And so like I couldn't go like 10 minutes without like a coughing fit.
It's true, which would not have been pleasant to listen to.
And so I feel like now my throat's been healing and I feel much better.
Yeah. That'll be good. We'll start to get in a more consistent schedule too, I think, once we figure that out.
We keep saying that. We keep being hopeful, you know what I mean? Like it'll be like, I'll be much more motivated once we like announce it and we actually get viewers. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. You guys keep watching, keep engaging, and then we'll
I'm still going to do it. We still do it anyways on a regular basis. Just rally, just do it.
Yeah, it's true.
And during the week, we should honestly write down things we want to talk about. That way it becomes much easier to like think of topics.
Yeah,
and
we should have
ideas.
a running list of things that we can talk about
Yeah,
for sure.
like add it to the list.
Yeah.
All right, so tomorrow, what time? Morning?
Tomorrow, I work tomorrow, so afternoon. Probably around this time, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
What time are you off work?
I'm off at 1.
Okay,
So,
so we'll,
give me time to eat.
yep, off at 1, eat some lunch, relax a little bit, probably around 3 o'clock then.
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right, so it's 4:30 now. We started around 3:30 today, so maybe we'll start at 3 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Sounds good.
All right, this is our 3rd episode, right?
Yeah.
And then
episode
tomorrow will be our
3.
4th. and
No,
then
today was episode 4.
today was episode 4?
Today was episode 4.
Okay. Tomorrow will be 5,
Yeah.
and then we'll announce.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this is Tips from your boyfriend. I'm Chinggis.
I'm Bethany.
See you tomorrow.